live to tape from the mountains of West Virginia.
Are you curious about the unknown, the unexplainable? Do you find yourself intrigued by the mysterious and paranormal side of our world? Join us on an adventure into the world of inexplicable discoveries and investigations that may someday give us a final answer as to what may be behind the veil of reality. Then it's time to turn your pods up, because we're live to tape from the mountains of West Virginia. It's time once again for Let's Find Out with co-host Diego. The universe is waiting for you.
Live to tape from the mountains of West Virginia, it's another episode of Let's Find Out with co-host Diego. Thank you for taking this journey with me. On this episode of Let's Find Out, over the summer of 2023, I met my good friend OS in Wayers Cave, Virginia at the Virginia Bigfoot Convention. He shared with me some Bigfoot sighting stories and also mentioned that his wife Judy has witnessed Bigfoot several times. On this episode of Let's Find Out, we will get to listen to Judy's story and experiences while camping and hiking in the woods of Virginia, North Carolina, and West Virginia. All this plus more, please welcome to Let's Find Out my good friend Judy. She will share with us her experiences as a Bigfoot witness. Judy, I appreciate you coming on the show here on Let's Find Out. I know we talked a couple of months ago about your personal experiences with witnessing a Bigfoot or perhaps other creatures. If we can go ahead and retell that story now that we have you on the show, and I've been waiting to share this story for a very long time.
All right. The first time I saw one, we were at this wildlife refuge not far from our house, and my husband was out he bought a new recorder to record noises while he's out and about, a little handheld recorder with all the bells and whistles on it. He wanted to try it out, so we went to the wildlife refuge area, and he went out to stalk birds, turkeys, deer, whatnot. And I'm at the car at the parking lot with our daughter, who was about 6 months old at the time, making a lot of noise. Obviously, if you heard it, you would know it was a mom and a baby, just farting around the parking lot. And there's this access road that goes straight down into the wildlife area. And it's like a overgrown gravel driveway. And my husband walked down that to start off with. And it'd been a while. And our daughter was getting restless, so I was walking her around, went over to the big board that's there and reading all the notices off of it. Hunting regulations, wildlife you're going to run into, all that kind of stuff you see. And I looked down the long road, and there was my husband sitting on his ankles. Some people can sit on their ankles like they're actually sitting, but my husband can do that. I can't. And so he was sitting there looking off intently into the woods. And that's about 100 yards away, 150 yards away. And I'm reading the board to our daughter and, keeping her entertained, not being quiet by any far means, but obviously not screaming either. And he kept sitting there in that one position, watching into the forest and just watching and watching and watching. And I thought it was interesting, but left him be because he was intent on it. And after about another 10-15 minutes, I look up and he's gone. I was like, okay, no problem. A while later, my husband comes out of the woods back to the car, and I'm looking at him, and he's wearing blue jeans and a light jacket. But when he was sitting there in that road watching the woods, he was wearing his brown pants because he was wearing different pants earlier that day. And I wasn't paying attention, but I'm like, what? How'd you change? It's like, I didn't change. I'm like, yes, you did. You were in brown sitting, about all the way down there. You see, and I told him where I saw him sitting and looking. He's like, that wasn't me. He was sitting in the woods in the general direction that that person was watching. And there was nobody else there that day. So whoever this was generally human in shape and all brown. My husband's got brown hair, and he was wearing brown earlier that day, and I just didn't pay attention. And when he came out of the woods, he was wearing his blue jeans. So that wasn't my husband that was watching the woods. So the only thing that was out there was us and Mother Nature. So I'm assuming that was a Bigfoot.
When you're talking about the wildlife refuge or in the woods, and I know you don't want to give away your location, but in what state did this happen?
Virginia.
All right.
And this was about 2,000 acres. There's a river that goes through it, and hunters go there to hunt. And Boy Scouts go there to do the Boy Scout routine and all. But most people don't go there. There's not a whole lot of paths to walk down and hike and such. The whole area is very much of if you want to hike through there, you can, but you're going to be bushwhacking. There's no real path to hike like you would find in most parks or national parks or anywhere else. There's no actual pathway. There are access roads, which was, this one looked like an overgrown gravel driveway. But that is about 300 yards, 350 yards long. Kind of like a driveway that's been abandoned for 20 years. They actually have to go out there and mow it every now and then to keep the weeds down. But most people don't do anything there beyond hunting. And this was not hunting season. And what hunter wears all brown?
Right.
So and there was nobody there because the parking lot was empty. It was just us. And there aren't any other parking areas for probably about 2 miles, maybe 3 miles. So I don't see how that could have been a person. And what person would wear all brown? It's asking to get shot,
You're right about it. Yeah, you're right. You normally would wear a color that would differentiate yourself from whatever it is other people are going to be hunting.
Yeah, I mean, it was not hunting season, but there are idiots out there, so you just don't want to look anywhere close to a deer.
Right.
Or bear. Because there are enough idiots out there that, will go hunting off season. But yeah, there was nobody else parked there. And when we left, we go a certain way, and the next parking lot down was empty as well. So I don't see how it was a person.
Did it make any sounds?
That's the first one I saw. No, no sounds whatsoever. I mean, it was far enough down that I wouldn't have heard it walking really, but its back was to me, as if I'd been dismissed. At the time, I was sort of peeved because I'm thinking the only thing that could have been was a Bigfoot, but it's to be totally dismissed and have the back facing towards me, like I'm not a threat to them at all. But then again, here is a woman with a baby doing baby stuff. So the last thing I'm going to do is go chasing down a path, after a Bigfoot. So I'm the least likely person to be a threat at that point in time. Cornered, yeah, but I'm not going to go chasing after anybody at that point in time. But it still was sort of, I don't know, annoying to be dismissed as a threat.
I mean, it might be a good thing. You never know, though.
Yeah. I mean, that's the one good thing, is that I wasn't considered a threat, but it's like, I could be a threat. I could, totally come after you and such. But yeah, right. Like, I'm going to, with a baby in my arms, I'm going to run after a Bigfoot and try to kill it or something. That's not happening. We all know that. So
now, do you normally
yeah,
venture into the woods a lot? Are you an active camper or a hunter or anything like that?
I don't hunt. I'm not against it, but I'm not going to go traipsing off in the woods and go shoot something, then have to gut it, clean it, drag it back to the car, then drag it home and chop it up. No. But if you want to hunt, that's fine. Go hunt. Camping, we go camping about 3-4 times a year. Tent camping. We have a camper now, so we are high society. But I'm not afraid of the woods, but I'm also not going to go running around in them in the dark. My night vision kind of sucks compared to other people's. But this area really does not lend itself to camping very easily. It's there. People hunt there, but there's not really a want or a need to turn it into a camping area or to a family-friendly area. It could very easily be turned into that, but nobody does.
Now, were those the only 2 experiences you've had so far?
No. We went camping one time in North Carolina. My husband, my daughter, and myself. There was a bunch of other people in the campground. My husband and most of the guys went traipsing off down the path to try to get a response from Bigfoot. Try to, I don't know, provoke something. And they're like, "Do you want to go with us?" And I was like, "No, I am not going traipsing off, at midnight off into the wood now." So most of the people that stayed in camp, one person had a huge bonfire. I mean, a really big campfire, I should say, not a bonfire, but yeah. And we sat around there having a good time. And then when my daughter, who was about 4 at the time, got really nervous suddenly. And so I took her back to our campsite. And our tent was off to one side. 3 sides were open. The 4th side was backed up to this hill. That was a very steep hill with rocks and ivy, poison ivy as well. There was no easy way to traverse this hill. And we were inside the tent and trying to get my daughter to settle down and go to sleep. Pulled out the portable DVD player and put in some SpongeBob DVDs. And so she was watching that and was finally settling down and went to sleep. It just took about 30, 45 minutes. And so once she fell asleep, I was just inside the tent reading. And I heard footsteps come down that hill, that really steep hill that is not easy to walk on. I mean, you'd be climbing over it, and that's scampering and climbing and digging and stuff. These were just steps that easily walked down that hill and then walked all the way around the tent and then stopped right where my daughter's head was and I was. And this hand pressed into the tent, 5-fingered hand, right over my daughter's head, about 6 inches, 10 inches into the tent, through the tent, on the tent wall. So you can't, you've seen it in the horror movies where the hand sort of gets pressed into the tent. It's kind of like that. It stayed there for, seemed like centuries, probably just a couple of seconds, and then pulled back out. But they stayed there, right there, for about a minute, then walked back to that hill and walked straight up that hill like there was nothing. I mean, just like you were walking down the street. There's no easy way to walk up that hill. And this was definitely bipedal. And the hand that pressed into the tent was a 5-fingered hand. Large one, yes, but a 5-fingered hand. I don't know. I mean, I know asking around the next morning, nobody saw anything, nobody heard anything, and nobody did anything. So that was not anybody, nobody claimed to have done that. But even if they were and just pulling my leg about it, how would they have walked down that hill to begin with and then back up the hill that easily? I was kind of wondering about that one, because someone was curious about us in a tent, but it was not, we weren't being quiet about it. We were being quiet enough for a campsite, but anyone listening in could have known it was, a parent and a child. So, but to push their hand inside the tent, or on the tent material, I should say, and then back out again. I never saw the person, but I saw the hand.
During that experience on the next day, did you see any footprints on the ground?
No. It's kind of hard ground there, not soft and spongy. I didn't see any evidence on the hill. I also didn't see how someone could have walked down or up that hill. And there's no easy way to get to the top of that hill from the campground. I mean, there's no paths going up it or anything. I don't see how anyone from the campground could have done it.
Now, prior to going to these locations, either in Virginia or North Carolina, in the campgrounds, did you have any experiences in your youth or before all this?
Not really. My mother always believed in Bigfoot and UFOs as well. So the thought of, Bigfoot existing, when someone first brought that out, and I was like, yes, I'm sure they exist. They just don't want to be on the front page of the newspaper. Well, why would you think it's there? Why wouldn't you think it's there? What was this? And everybody's arguing over whether Bigfoot exists or doesn't exist. And I'm like, I'm sure it exists because there's been enough sightings and footprints and, pictures, videos, enough of that out there. And to me, it was like, yeah, sure, Bigfoot exists. Bigfoot doesn't really want to exist with us. So Bigfoot stays in their territory and we stay in ours. The sightings happen when one of us goes into Bigfoot territory, kind of thing, like in the Sierra Nevadas, or, that's where I always thought the only place they existed was there. Then somebody brought it up, and then we started talking about it, and I've just always been open to it because why not? It's not a big scary monster out there. It's just another creature on the planet trying to live their own life and do their own thing. Because if they were all that scary, I really think we as humans would have gone after them en masse. And if necessary, and they were that much of a threat to us. We as humans have gone after whatever we perceived as a threat, and usually pretty successfully. So I wouldn't put it past uh, us to burn down an entire mountainside to stop a threat. So and we've got the firepower for it. We've got armies and stuff. So if it's that much of a big deal, I could see it happening, honestly. So it was never a scary thing. It's just something else that exists, like the glasses in the cabinet in the kitchen. It exists. Nope, not really a debate to me. And then my husband gets interested in it, and we start researching it, looking for places to find, where do we get a sighting? Where do we find evidence? That kind of stuff. That was sort of the next step. I thought it was interesting, so why not? So that's when we started looking into the whole Bigfoot phenomena and trying to gather evidence to prove to other people it's there. And of late, I've kind of come around to the whole idea of we can't prove Bigfoot exists by bringing back footprints, videos, pictures, hair samples. We can't prove Bigfoot exists that way. The only way to prove it is to bring back a body, because that's how everything else has been proven. Someone brings back a body, science catalogs it, does DNA DNA evidence, and catalogs everything into data. And then when somebody else comes across evidence, they bring back hair samples, and then they compare the hair samples to what's in the database. Oh yeah, this matches this creature, or this matches this creature. So what you found was a bear, was a great ape, was a chimpanzee, was a, whatever animal it was, because they took the sample, compared it to what's known in the catalog, and it matched up. Like matching fingerprints. You match it, that's what it is. And until we have a body, we won't be able to prove Bigfoot exists, because we need a body to bring it in, have science, do the DNA, do sketches, do the whole bone workup so that we have a skeleton, catalog it completely. And then at that point, that becomes known, and then you can compare your hair samples to the known. Oh yeah, that's another Bigfoot. Oh yeah, this is another Bigfoot. And see, the footprint matches the footprint. The skin matches the skin. The hair matches the hair. The video matches what this looks like. At that point, you can prove Bigfoot exists. But I also think Bigfoot is intelligent. And being intelligent, I'm not going to run around and try to kill one of them just to bring in a body and prove a point. I also think whales are intelligent and dolphins are intelligent. I'm not going to kill one and drag it in and say, hey, look, I killed another intelligent creature. I'm not going to do that for Bigfoot either. So I'm not really up on gathering evidence, because there's plenty of evidence already been gathered. Unless you run across a body, you can't prove it exists.
Prior to you coming on the show and telling me, and of course the listeners, about it, did you report these sightings to anybody else?
In the scientific community, no. Friends, yes. And I know people who have a couple of Ziploc bags of, supposed Bigfoot hair, or they have a cast of a Bigfoot footprint, which it could be true that is Bigfoot hair and a Bigfoot footprint, but you can't prove it unless you have the body to compare it to. A known body that science has gotten cataloged and everything. So amongst friends, yes, but not to authorities. Because it seems like the authorities, Dr. Meldrum, he's got a lot of skin samples, hair samples, footprints. So he doesn't really need more. He just needs a body to compare them to. So it's at least believing in Bigfoot is no longer crazy territory. It's becoming more mainstream, but it's still sort of on the fringe kind of thing. But at least it's not completely crazy. Oh, yeah, she believes in a Bigfoot. She's totally insane. In the 70s and 60s, yeah. Today, we've got TV shows all about Bigfoot and chasing down Bigfoot and trying to get evidence about Bigfoot. So I don't know. I mean, there's no need for more evidence. You just need a body because there's a lot of evidence out there. A lot of it's been collected and cataloged. The shows are talking about how they found samples of, what was it, eDNA, and it does not match up with any. It's an ape creature, but it's not matched up to any known ape. It's not human, it's not chimpanzee, it's not any of the known creatures, but it's in the same family. So we have an unknown relative out there.
The shows that you watch the most about Bigfoot, which ones stand out the best for you?
I think it's Expedition Bigfoot is the most recent one. They seem to have one guy that stays back at the command center and sends out groups in twos, plus the camera crew that goes with them, trying to hunt down evidence or get footage or hear the knocks or the vocalizations that you hear. I think they're doing a decent job of trying to do that and going places where Bigfoot has been sighted. I think they're doing a good job of it and filming it, but they're also getting the same frustrations that Bigfoot researchers get, is that you get the noises, you get the signs, you get the videos, the eye shine, the shadows, the creature moving it through the woods, or you can see it peeking out around a tree. But all of that could be Hollywood doing weird stuff with cameras. It comes down to you won't prove it until you have a body, and no one's come up with a body. But I think they seem to be one of the better ones that are trying to get evidence, trying to prove it.
From your experience running into this creature in the campgrounds in the woods, how were you able to remain so calm? And what kind of advice could you give to those who possibly may run into one of these in the woods?
I wouldn't treat it. You treat it like an intelligent creature because it is. It's intelligent, and like us, I think there are friendly ones, and I think there are unfriendly ones. Just like us, we have friendly neighbors, we have unfriendly neighbors. There will always be a Karen, there'll always be that nutcase you run into on a freeway that's trying to kill you. Don't corner them. Any creature cornered is going to become very mean very quickly. But I also wouldn't turn my back on them just because you don't know if it's a nice one or a mean one or a psycho one, even worse. Because I'm sure if we've got psychos running around, my neck of the woods on the freeways, they will have their own version of a psycho. Just stay calm. Do your best not to corner them. But no, I'm the hand that came inside the tent. My heart was pounding. I could have sworn my heart was going to come out of my mouth. But I mean, there wasn't anything I could do. I mean, I could have screamed, made a fuss, thrown things at the hand, but I didn't sense danger. It was more of a curiosity. The one that was sitting there in that long access road, I'm pretty sure it was watching my husband trying to figure out what the heck he was up to. I didn't sense danger from that one either. It was just more of a, what are you doing? Why are you here? This is near my home, near my family, near, in my area. What are you doing here? And I'm going to watch you to make sure you are not a threat to me. One time I even kind of chased one, sort of, because we were at this place in West Virginia, and there is a really nice trail that runs along the river, the Greenbrier River. There's a Greenbrier path, I guess it is. It used to be a train tracks, and they pulled up the tracks and rails to trails thing. Really nice trail. And we were there, and you've got the river, you've got the trail, and then right after that, you've got this hill that runs a good distance down there. It's West Virginia, it's mountainy. My husband saw us, we were walking down the trail, and he stopped. He saw something halfway up that hill, and he went up after it. And I was not going to go climbing up that hill to try to find whatever he was doing. So I stayed on the path. And it was green, summertime, and within 15, 20 feet, I couldn't see him anymore. I could hear him, but I couldn't see him. And then he eventually stopped. I'm guessing about 40 yards up the hill from the path. And I'm waiting and waiting and waiting. Then I hear him run at a full sprint, straight, like upriver. And I was like, I don't know what he was running from, but I assumed whatever he's running from would probably eat me too. So I ran along the path trying to keep up with him. And then he stopped. So I stopped. And I called a couple of times, what's going on? What did you see? Why are we running? No response. Then he takes off running again, and I'm running along the flat path, so I'm chasing after him or paralleling him. And he stops again, so I stop. Then this log, a good sized log that you'd put on your fireplace to burn for several hours, came flying and landed in front of me on the pathway, like 5 feet in front of me. And of course, now I'm mad because whatever my husband did, he knocked this wood loose that almost hit me. And I'm yelling at him. And on a radio, by the way, two-way radios. I'm yelling at him. I was like, what the heck did you just throw at me? And he finally answers back. He said, I didn't throw anything at you. I'm like, yes, you did. You just threw a log at me. And then he's like, would you just be quiet? And I'm mad at this point because you don't just throw a log at me and then tell me just to be quiet. I was about ready to kill him. And then he finally comes back with, I'm watching one, and I haven't moved since I went up the hill. And I'm thinking, you haven't moved. So what the heck have I been chasing? And I'm looking up where I heard the runner stop. And I can't see anything, just trees and bushes and leaves and stuff. But I don't see anything. So I start walking back to where he went up the hill. And he eventually comes back down. I hear him come straight back down to the path. And I'm like, you didn't run that way, a few minutes ago? He's like, no, I went straight up the hill and I stopped and I stayed. And I was watching him. And it's like, watching what? It's like, well, there was something and it was making the tree kind of wave back and forth. So something was moving the tree. This that he could see. I couldn't see this tree. And I'm like, you did not run down the pathway like a full out sprint. And he was laughing. He said, no, because there's no way I could have sprinted, because it's all at a, I don't know, a good 40 to 45-degree angle. And it's just rough forest. No path up there. There was no way to sprint. You could have walked it, but it would have been hard walking, but there was no sprinting. And I'm like, okay, you do realize when you went up there, and I told him what I had heard, seen, and done. And he's like, that wasn't me. It's like, are you sure it was a four-legged run or was it a two-legged run? I'm like, it was a two-legged run. Because you can hear the difference if you really listen to it. You could hear the difference between 4 legs running and 2 legs running. And this was definitely 2 legs running. And it wasn't my husband. It was something else that was running, which ran, stopped, ran, and then threw the log in front of me. And so when we were going back to our campground, we walked back up that path, and I pointed out the log that I originally thought my husband had thrown at me or had dislodged and had been somehow flung at me. And he's like picking it up, and it was a seriously heavy log. I mean, it could be picked up, yes, by a regular person, but it wasn't something you could throw more than a couple of feet. And this came flying from, I don't know, 30, 40 yards up this hill. So it came a good distance. So I don't see how a person could have thrown that log that far that it did. So, and that was another thing I didn't see. I heard, but never saw it.
So this wasn't like a tree branch, it was like a literal log.
This was, I mean, it was rough-ended. It wasn't nicely sliced like you would with a chainsaw or saw of some kind. This was, but it was about 2.5, 3 foot long, and I don't know, 8, 10 inches diameter. So it was a good heavy log that would have kept your campfire going for quite some time. It was heavy too. I mean, but that was picked up and thrown in front of me on the path. My assumption was to sort of scare me so I wouldn't chase after it anymore. Because, I mean, my thoughts was my husband was running from something or running at something. One way or the other, I was going to keep up with him. Because if he's running from something that fast, I need to run from it too. Or if he's running to something that fast, I need to run as well. And I think it was the Bigfoot was just like, I don't want her chasing me anymore, and just threw that in front of me and said no. And yeah, that stopped me.
With these type of experiences you've had, before we go, let me ask you this one last question. Does any of this discourage you from going camping anymore or venturing into the woods?
No, not really. Because it's the experiences I've had have not been scary experiences. The hand at the tent bothered me the most, but at the time I didn't feel menace from it. I didn't think it was predatory. I think it was more exploring or curiosity kind of thing. So I've never really felt malice from any of them. But like with any wild animal, I am not going to turn my back on them either, because you never know what someone could do. But no, I still find the woods a calming, get in touch with your inner self, calm down, reassess, what's going on in your life. Just sort of, it's just a way to get away from the world. And I don't think even knowing that Bigfoot's there, or with the experience I've had, that it would stop me from doing that again. I understand that some people have had very scary experiences, but I haven't. So it's not going to stop me from going back into the woods again. But we have dogs, and most dogs, if they're treated the right way, will be vicious. And I feel the same way about people or about Bigfoot. If you treat them one way, they'll be nice. If you treat them another way, they could be vicious. Yeah, I still like the woods, and I'm still going to go into the woods. So I hope that answers your question.
Oh, it does. You're a lot braver than I am, and I really appreciate you coming on the show and sharing these very personal stories with your experiences witnessing Bigfoot. And if you were to ever go back into the woods and have another experience, if you wouldn't mind coming back to Let's Find Out and sharing them with the audience, with our listeners, that would be great.
Certainly, that I will do.
Well, thank you so much, Judy. This has been another excellent episode of Let's Find Out with co-host Diego. Please check us out on Spotify, Audible, Google Podcasts, all of our social media pages, YouTube, and we're also on Rumble. Like, share, and subscribe. Thank you for taking this journey with me. Until next time, my friends.
Thank you for listening to Let's Find Out with co-host Diego. We're on Spotify, Google Podcasts, TuneIn, Pocket Casts, and on Anchor. For more information about Let's Find Out with co-host Diego, please visit us on Facebook.com/co-host Diego, on Twitter at co-host_Diego, and on Instagram as co-host Diego. Copyright co-host Diego. All content for Let's Find Out is the property of co-host Diego and is served directly from our servers with no modification, redirects, or rehosting. All celebrity impersonators are paid performers. The impersonated celebrities do not endorse or promote any views or opinions expressed by our guests, co-host Diego, or Let's Find Out. The information shared on Let's Find Out is provided on an as-is basis with no guarantees of completeness, accuracy, usefulness, or timeliness.
Moonlight Monster Media presents the Steeds Ridge DVDs, Steeds Ridge posters, stickers, Moonlight Monster Media mugs, and Moonlight Monster Media t-shirts.